sisters and brothers, Dhamma friends. Now we are going to have the time for the today's Dhamma talk. So everyone may consent with 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Rupam bhikkave anatta rupam hi atta abhavissa naidang rupam abadaya sangvattanti ti. Dear Dhamma friends, whenever we are in a retreat like this, Dhamma talk is a part and parcel of the daily timetable. That is because whenever someone is meditating, individually or as a group, we have to facilitate it in all the possible ways. So one is to give the theoretical knowledge or book knowledge which is supporting and supportive for our meditative endurance. So this is called Suttamaya Anuggahite, otherwise Sutta Anuggahite. That means giving the necessary information, and on top of that, one has to maintain one's own morality, Sila Anuggahite, and discussions and interviews, that is called Sakacca Anuggahite. Then only one can individually make sure the Samatha-anuggahita, that means conducive conditions regarding the concentration, and then the last conducive conditions regarding the insight or vipassana knowledge. So all these 5 are recognized as facilitating methods. So this Dhamma talk is coming under Sutta Anuggahite. So that is one of the traditions in these meditation retreats. So far, as I mentioned yesterday, we have conducted 25 retreats here. Each time we have taken one of the discourses or sutta from the teaching of the Buddha, basically from the Sutta Pitaka, the discourses, and we take it as the common topic and deal day by day on the same topic and go into the depth as we proceed in our practice as well as in the Dhamma talks. For this particular retreat, it has been suggested to have Ananta Lakkana Sutta. The Ananta Lakkana Sutta is a fairly famous one among the people, those who are interested in Buddhist literature. But when you go to Sutta Pitaka, that means on the basket of the discourses, you won't find this name. You may find Panchavaggiya Sutta, that means the pet name or common name being Ananta Lakkana Sutta. In the literature, you find as a Panchavaggiya Sutta. Whatever it may be, everyone, those who accept the Theravada canon, accept this is the second formal discourse the Buddha delivered, and the first one being the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. And for both these, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta as well as for this Ananta Lakkana Sutta, the audience was that group of 5 months. And it was very significant, important as well as historical, because when the Buddha delivered the very first sutta, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, turning the wheel of the Four Noble Truths, the first ever human being managed to grasp the gist of it, the crux of it. And that is the breakthrough, the very profound thing the Buddha enlightened and understood can be communicable. or given to another person. So therefore, as far as the communication is concerned, it was a very big breakthrough. And soon after the sutta, one of the 5 ascetics came to know the basic idea, communicated to him. So the Buddha was so happy, so enjoyed telling. One person, he really understood what the Buddha tried to explain. And then onward, according to the commentarial exegesis, day by day, Buddha has taken individual guided meditation kind of retreat for one person each day, leaving the other people to go to the village and do the alms rounds and take care about the foods. One person or two taken into and given a intensive guided kind of meditation. So 4 more days went by, and then 5th day delivered this particular one, the Ananta Lakkana Sutta, that is the characteristics of non-self. And they are all the 4 achieved the full enlightenment or became Arahant together with the Buddha. Then onward there were 6 Arahants on the planet, and that was the second breakthrough. This historical explanation indicates the second sutta, namely the Ananta Lakkana Sutta, is fairly profound. It is meant for deep or full-time meditators. So we also have to take pain to understand it in a systematic way and try to incorporate with our already existing experience, and together with this theoretical support, the book knowledge, we have to get the balance in order to have a smooth progress. So therefore I invite every one of you to give the full attention, and when and where any unclear situation or complicated thing happen, you may please raise the question in the question and answer session, and I will try to keep on dealing the subject matter more towards the pragmatic side, more towards the practical side, and therefore though the sutta, the particular sutta, by its appearance being a short one, day by day we will take quotation of it, a short one, and apply as much as possible in the practical side. So with this introduction, if I am to go to the present day quotation, the Buddha is coming out with a very bold statement, Rupam Bhikkhave Anatta. That means statement made out of his omniscient knowledge. He says the materiality or form is selfless. So this is a kind of a bold statement, and I think we can fairly share with him and understand there is no soul, there is no self in the materiality or form or in the matter. Though it appears like a very simple, bold statement, one has to understand in the balanced way, because before the really organized religions appeared, specifically in India, maybe in the Western countries also, people believed the natural things like the sun, the water bodies, or big trees, or big rocks. So animistic kind of belief, they felt the enormous gathering of the heat, gathering of water, has kind of a mystical power. So therefore they went on to the point to believe them and considered them as celestial beings or devas, and that is how the belief system came into being. So for them, the form has kind of a controlling power, has a governance, and dictating terms upon the being. So therefore, human beings has to have a good terms with this materiality. That is how they started worshipping the sun god, and then later the fire, big trees and rocks and oceans, all the kind of thing. So therefore there's a one part, there's a soul, hidden one, mystical, and it never verified, but from A to Z, it was just a belief. So that is how it started. And as a result, later this omnipotent, omnipresent God, single God came into being. At the beginning with the animistic idea, there are a lot of gods, pantheon of gods, and ultimately it organized into one single God, and still considered it as a consistent soul. And due to its unverifiability, some others took the atheist kind of a view, say they wanted to disprove that very fact, there is a soul. So ultimately they took the stand, the matter which can be analyzable and detectable, and to the last drop, if you keep on analyzing and keep on doing, there's nothing you can find as a pit. There's nothing you can find a characteristic like soul. So therefore, there was a huge argument. There's a permanent soul, sometimes attributable to the form and sometimes not, and the soullessness. So therefore, two sects were fighting each other. The idea, the matter has no soul, the Buddha came out with, it is suggesting the middle path to vehemently accept or to reject it. So, in practice, specifically with respect to the materiality, that in Pali jargon we call Kayanupassana, or the Rupa Dhamma, and when someone is keep on practicing with the body as a aggregate, agglomeration, it has its own agglomerated forms, and based upon that, when someone is meditating, the matter, the very object of meditation, the primary object itself is undergoing an evolution or metamorphosis or change, and the particular person observing also undergoing kind of changes. So it appeared at the beginning, you take the null hypothesis, there is a soul. And then your whole meditation is to disprove your null hypothesis, that is like peeling off layer by layer. And when you go to the deep and the core, you will understand you have disproved maybe 95% or 90% of your null hypothesis. And then you verify that what you placed, you have taken the soul, the matter or form is having soul, is disproved. So therefore, the way the Buddha presented it, not thoroughly accepting it is having or not having, so that is the part very subjective. You have to understand with your own theoretical knowledge as well as with the practice. When we take this matter and go into the scientific evolution and developments, science went against this idea of soul or omnipotent, omnipresent soul, and therefore their basic effort was to analyze it and see there's no such a pit. So at the beginning, the Dalton was, he managed to see the molecule as the building block, and he told no more breakable, and when you go to that, you can clearly see it's just a matter. But later, they went into the atom, subatomic, ultimately they are units, but they have taken as the unbreakable building block, became questionable. And when they go to further down and to see all the matter, nothing but energy, then their formulas and their frame itself was broken by new discoveries. And they are also, at the beginning, they had an idea the form is having a particular concrete form. It has its own characteristics, it has its own specific gravity, it is density and all the kind of thing. When we, as the children, go to the school, we remember, we are taught with that periodical charts. And this is particular element, this particular element has this character and it has its own cage. Within that cage you have the atomic weight and the number of atoms and characteristic, whether it is a conducting heat or not, all the kind of thing. There's a kind of a notion that each and every matter has its own characteristic features that is called elements. But when the science keep on analyzing, ultimately they found everything emerging out of mere ocean of energy, and it can manifest in many ways, and that manifestations are not permanent. They are changing, they can interchange each other. So can one experiment and verify the very thing in the meditation? If it is so, even though you have a null hypothesis at the beginning, there is a matter, there is a form, and when you keep on analyzing, ultimately, if in meditation one can go into this energy level, and then easy one to understand it is transient nature. So Vipassana Bhavana or inside meditation is somewhat parallel to this, but I am just taking as an example. Whenever someone to understand this form is but it is transient. So in order to prove this transient nature, at the beginning you have to consider it as a form, it has the shape, it has its own intrinsic characteristic, that is called individual characteristics, and out of that individual characteristics only one start this noble quest or noble experimentation. So that is, we can say, Kayanupassana, or contemplation on the body, and whenever the Buddha presenting his meditation, basically on the inside meditation, he takes his very body as the laboratory, as the lab, and there take one form as the starting point. And this is how do you start the experiment. How does this sutta starts also the same. Take first the matter, take first the form, and try to understand whether it is having any kind of unbreakable, continuous nature, or whether it is transient. So that is the big experiment challenge the meditator is going to take, and how far a meditator can go into the depth and verify it. That is what we call the progress in the insight meditation. So when someone is ready for this kind of experiment, the Buddha coming out with the suggestion, as I mentioned yesterday also, if someone wish to take this experiment, Buddha says that you have to make the micro and macro climate or atmosphere suitable and conducive for this experiment, because at the beginning, though it is appear like gross, it has go to the utmost subtlety. So therefore your external variables must be fairly fixed in order to go into the depth. So that is why it says, as far as the materiality is concerned or form is concerned, as the starting point, one has to go into the forest, so that whatever you are observed, you are going to listen, may not arouse so much of big likings and dislikings. So atmosphere must be suitable for the indifferent or equanimous kind of sensuous impingements. For that the Buddha recognized the forest is the best. Or under a tree, or go to a place where there are no more people with sensuous gratification and searching for pleasure principle. So that is what we call meditation center, or what is called the meditation hall. And that is the place we get together. Even though it appears like a very busy, very crowded and congested, it is people with the same parallel ideas. So therefore, no one is going to behave in such a way to arouse feelings or arouse any kind of distractions for the others. So that is the external atmosphere. Internally, you have to fix certain variables. For example, if you are living in the normal day-to-day life, you have 6 faculties. The eye is very busy, always searching for visual objects. So as far as you are in contact with, in avenue with, in view with visual objects, you will be really distracted and you will be outwardly measuring and calculating the external visual object. So you will be easily taken for a ride. So therefore, the Buddha recommend closed eyes in order to make the experiment somewhat simple and straightforward. And except the eye and the visual objects, the next one is the ear and the sound. And that is also, whenever your attention is on sounds, that is also not so powerful than the visual objects, but next to it, strong enough to distract you from the present moment, from this present place, and what you call myself. And gradually, the smell, the taste, and the best the Buddha found is the touch. That is the starting point of study or experimenting with form or materiality, because the touch is more direct and less rooms for the complications. And as far as the touch is concerned, the Buddhist literature, it shows it has 4 elements, just like in physics, the solids, liquids, air and thermal physics. Here we have the earth element, the water element, air element and the heat element. The 4 parallels are there. And out of these 4 elements, the Buddha recommend the air element is the easiest to catch, because it is responsible for the expansion and contraction and pressure. So this is the starting point. So therefore once you sit, when you are observing within yourself, many may come out with the touch of the air element, or stiffness and tension and expansion and contraction, pressure, that kind of things. This is the representation of air element. Of course, away from the air element, you may feel the just touch of your body to the ground. That may be some earth element, or hardness and softness, and air element also part and partial. But when you are observing, when you are reading, going through the literature, it says air element is the beginner can find easy to start with. So therefore it's called Vayo Pottabha Dhatu. That means the tangible nature or touchable nature of the air element. So whether you are observing the in-breath and out-breath or rising and falling the abdomen, both manifestations are nothing but from the air element. So going to that is a suggestion So you have to understand, if it is working like that, it is good and well. Otherwise, you have to find your own prominent object. When you sit and close your eyes, and if there are no distracting sounds, what is the physical form, what is the materiality addressing to you most in the prominent way. So, according to the example we have taken, if someone is going to take this air element, or in-breath and out-breath, or rising and falling of the abdomen in sitting meditation, you are supposed to look at it in such a way. Westerners, they call it is choiceless awareness. You have to observe the air element, movement of the air element, without any likings and disliking. Or some people put it as evenly suspended attention. You observe in-breath as well as the out-breath with evenly suspended attention. And sometimes it's called in an unassuming way. In a non-reactional way, you observe as if you are observing someone else thing. Yeah, movement as someone else. So these are the characteristic features of the mindfulness. So this is not in our day-to-day activities. Our day-to-day activities, we are always with likings and disliking. We have pleasure principle. We have to maximize this and that. So therefore, we have not trained according to this mindfulness. So therefore, for the last 30 to 40 years, East and the West sharing this idea, is looking at this matter, something, your own body, you can experience under your nose without premeditated idea of good and bad, liking and disliking, and just to observe in a choiceless way. This is very difficult because our mind is so conditioned. Our mind is so in a rut. So to bring the mind up to the mindfulness and let the breath to take its natural course, itself will take 3-4 days for the beginners. Even then it is efficient, I would say. So therefore, day by day you are to understand the materiality. You must be down to earth, you must be ready to see them without premeditated ideas. So, therefore, in order to observe this kind of a natural thing, this kind of a neutral thing, in a choiceless way, there should have a minimal amount of distractions. Otherwise, our mind will find excuses to run away, telling this is not something tasty, not something dramatic, not something eventful. So therefore, one has to take conscious effort. So that is why the listening to Dhamma and encouraging through discourses and association with the people with the same ideas, one has to take effort. For example, if we take into account that we can keep the breath, few breaths, face to face with, that is the starting point that we are going to start when we are going to see whether this matter represented by, for the moment with the air element, whether it has any kind of a soul or any kind of a controlling power, executive powers or agenda, or whether it is happening in its own accord. It is happening in other words, as a universal law. So they are the people, those who are believing omnipotent, omnipresent, almighty God, they would say this breath is the wish of the God or will of the God. It is happening to the will of the God. But the atheists may come, therefore they say it as an intelligent design, and that is according to the design of the original design of the God, this is happening. But atheist and evolutionist may come and say, no, this is natural selection. After long time of interaction with the being, interaction with the air element. This is happening due to the evolutionary process, natural selection. So therefore, beginner, the meditator, may have some ideas about the intelligent design. Some other may be telling, no, I am not, so I am atheist and I am going to disprove the soul idea or self idea. And therefore, your mind is at the beginning colored or premeditative ideas are there. So you have to keep on practicing. With long practicing only you can one day keep the breath face to face with just the idea of noble quest, the Arya Pariyesana. So when it is happening, you are just observing the in-breath and the out-breath. And as I mentioned, at a time, due to your effort, you may come to know that my mind is free from distractions and I can be with the face-to-face with the breath. So this is, I would say, a kind of a familiarity. When it is happening, it is directly proportionate to the amount of effort you have taken. Not a single one given this kind of a situation at the beginning, so therefore everyone has to take their own due pain, and then only you can make a determination, the clarity in your mind. Now I can keep the breath or rising and falling face to face with me or under your very nose, you are observing it. When you are observing it, in order to penetrate, that's one of the characteristics of the mindfulness, in order to penetrate, in order to facilitate it, you are being asked to observe the breath, the materiality, the form, to see the individual characteristics of the in-breath versus out-breath. That is how the analytical power, we are going to use it, we are going to penetrate into that. So therefore, not just you are happy to see, happy to state that I am with face-to-face with the breath, or I can experience the breath under my very nose, but still the teacher or your spiritual friend or the instruction will say that is not enough, just please try to see in-breath versus out-breath. When I bring the attention to this level, I would definitely say this is how the instructions toward the insight meditation is going. That is because the very breath, the very tactile sensation of this air element could be used as concentration, object of concentration also. So those who have that kind of tendencies, they will find very difficult to follow this instruction, because they will come out and say, yes, of course, my mind is not distracted by the sound or pain or thoughts. It is face to face with the breath, but hardly I can see the discrimination between the in-breath and out-breath. It's a fair, honest kind of a statement. So therefore it is not a mistake of the particular yogi, particular meditator. So also possible combination, but that particular person will keep on practicing with in-breath and out-breath as an object of meditation, and still can't categorically see in-breath versus out-breath. But make sure the mind is very clear, mind is not distracted. So therefore, if such a situation happens, I personally, after interviewing 1 or 2 times, I come to a fair decision that particular yogi's inclination is more toward the samatha than vipassana. If someone can see the characteristic features, that is called natural characteristics of in-breath versus out-breath, and even after instructions, if someone can produce under the nose experience, that's a good indication to decide he or she is having some insight or vipassana inclination, and one has to promote it to see the in-breath versus out-breath. So, for that, the discussion and the interviews are very important. So therefore, those who are practicing individually or self-retreat or taking out the books, if this kind of delimitation, discrimination or separation is not there, the mind may become lethargic and you may be earn kind of a concentration and stagnation can happen. So therefore it is being promoted to see natural characteristics or individual features of the in-breath versus out-breath. So whenever someone is about to see the discrimination between the in-breath and out-breath, that is opening a completely inward penetration. For example, someone would say the in-breath becomes cooler and out-breath is warmer, or in-breath is shorter or longer, out-breath is otherwise, and the rubbing sensation, many tingling sensation, everything when it happens, the observing mind and the observed objects become closer and closer. So when this is happening, the less and less distraction is the result. So they are happening in the harmonious way. So the particular meditator can go deep more and more because observation is very immediate, very close. So when it is keep on practicing or sharpening to see the discrimination between in-breath and out-breath, is invariably such a meditator will see not only there is a big difference between the in-breath and out-breath, but whenever the mind is aligned with and closely observed, there are some differences from in-breath to in-breath, out-breath to out-breath. So, to make it clear, in Satipatthana Sutta, the foundation of, four foundation of mindfulness, in Anapanasati Sutta, or mindfulness on in-breath and out-breath, the Buddha has mentioned this trip in 4 stages. The introductory term is, so sato asasati, sato pasasati. He in-breath mindfully, he in-breath, out-breath mindfully. That is the opening door. And then, Dikang vasasanto dikang asasamiti pajanati, whenever he is going to take a long in-breath, he very clearly knows, I am taking a deep in-breath. Whenever he is going to take deep out-breath, very clearly knows, under your very nose, that I am exhaling a long out-breath. So that is how the characteristics come into being. And then, if everything is conducive, if everything is inwardly, he or she going to start to feel shorter in-breath and short out-breath. That means long in-breath becomes gradually short. Long out-breath becomes gradually short. Not only the difference between the in-breath and out-breath, but in-breath to in-breath, out-breath to out-breath, the characteristics become very clear. So that means the kind of a magnetic power, kind of attraction or penetration going to start. So when that is happening, the very particular practitioner, he or she is the one to understand this phenomena. Immediately now there is a kind of a relationship is developing. When that is happening, it comes to a certain extent now less and less distraction from the outside, and the in-breath and out-breath is almost face to face. They are, the mind, the body and the breath become calmed down. Of course, this is not the idealistic situation where there may be some sounds, there may be some pains and thoughts, but whenever these things happen, if someone make their mind clear, we can't expect that kind of a frictionless world or distractionless world. We have to tolerate certain amount of distractions. The best is amidst of all the distraction, if someone can keep the track with in-breath and out-breath, he or she will understand the way how to deal whenever the distractions are arising. And on top of that only, you have to develop close relationship, discrete relationship between the in-breath and out-breath, so to say, discrimination between in-breath and out-breath, discrimination between in-breath to in-breath. So, with all, if the breath is going to be subtle, there are your attitudes towards the meditation, attitude towards the object also becoming a question, because if you are a familiar meditator in the Theravada tradition, except in-breath and out-breath, all the other objects are gradually increasing and become dramatic. Only the mindfulness on in-breath and out-breath, more and more you go deeper, it becomes shrinking, becomes subtle and subtlest. So therefore, if you are expecting the breath to become more and more dramatic, more and more gross and more eventful, you will get disheartened when the breath becomes subtle. So these things one must know on theoretical basis, on the book knowledge, then only one can promote, one can facilitate the progress of the meditation. Otherwise, inside you may entertain doubts. Inside you may give up, telling that my mindfulness is become weaker, my concentration is become weaker, interest and the motivation also will be undermined. So not to be so, you have to have a certain amount of theory knowledge. Therefore, our Venerable Matra Sri Jnanarama, my preceptor, he used to say, when the breath is observed, there are 3 stages: the gross breath, soon after the sitting, and then the subtle breath, where the discrimination become less and less, and mind become closer and closer, and then you go to the subtler state. When you go to the subtler state, the situation will be more challenging, because hardly any difference between the in-breath and out-breath. You will see just a vibration or lightness or light perception or kind of a wave kind of movements instead of the clarity between the in-breath and out-breath. And the differences between in-breath versus in-breath, out-breath versus out-breath also become subtler, become less and less. So under such circumstances, we are more and more nearing to this statement of the Buddha, the Rupam Bhikkhave Anatta. At the beginning, as far as you have individual characteristic, discrimination, delimited understanding, there is a chance to think the intelligent side. There is a chance, there is a controlling power, there is an agenda. But when everything comes into the in-breath and out-breath, both come to the common character, when both appear very subtle, you find very difficult to even to keep the mind with the track of in-breath and out-breath, and your internal lack of faith or doubt, entertaining doubts and mental proliferations are going to start, unless otherwise you are well trained and well prepared. So therefore, more and more you go to the subtle breath, you get confused, you may get confused, as there is no difference between the in-breath and out-breath, and ultimately the tangibility, the grossness reduces, and your explaining capacity, how to put into words, also become difficult. And not only that, when the breath becomes so subtle, if you are very sharp and observant, you may see the internal, external boundaries will dissolve off. everything appear like a oceanic kind of feeling. Breathing takes place, but you can't discriminately and discreetly say whether it's internal, happening within your capacity, within your body, or within your skin, or outside. And gross to the subtlety changes happen, into the out boundaries disappearing, and liking and disliking toward the breath also now no chances, because everything appears in the equal sense. And sometimes it appears like a far away or very close. That kind of a shifting of paradigm and the changing of the nature become very challenging unless otherwise you are prepared. So the Buddha, in order to give some basic guidelines, he says, if you have to claim that I have seen all the facets of the breath, you have to see 11 facets. Then only you can say you have mastered it. That is to say, you must equally see the gross breath and the subtle breath. There should not have any kind of a liking for gross breath or subtle breath, or dislike for the gross breath and subtle breath. So liking and disliking is yet another dimension, another couplet. In and out at the beginning, of course, you know it is touching inside your nostril, the left wall or right wall or top of your lip or kind of thing. You have a reference point to your body, as to say it is happening within. But when the breath becomes subtle and you are choicelessly observe, at a time you feel there is no boundary, there is no margin to say in and out. And that is also yet another thing you have to be prepared. And the closed and far away form, sometimes you feel the breathing takes place and at a distance maybe 2-3 meters away, and still the pattern is there, rhythm is there, but you have no control, it is happening. Sometimes you feel it is going towards the inside your brain, not at the nostril level, go to the center of the brain and dislodging. In and out happens. So these are the 8 facets. On top of that, you may see the present form, the past form and the future form. That is to say, if your mindfulness is so sharp, just before the in-breath starts, your vigilant mind will say, not yet come, now it is arising. So you can see no movements to the movement starts. The in-breath just started. And you have, before it is going to give any tactile sensation or tangibility, by the alertness, the mindfulness is fully ready. And then you can see slowly the in-breath starts. And then it becomes gross, rushing, or rubbing. And ultimately when it ceases to exist, still you can be an observer. In-breath is finished. Still your mindfulness is intact. You are looking at what? You don't know. Mindfulness is intact. And there you can see the past form, in-breath has already gone, but you are not disheartened, you are not given up. You are still keeping the mindfulness on, and therefore even in one in-breath, you can see the beginning, the middle and the end. So this is very challenging. And even before the out-breath happens, your mindfulness is ready, evenly suspended attention. It is how the out-breath starts, how it is middle, the gross form, and then how it ceases to exist. And when that is happening, you see the wave from the beginning, the middle and the end. So the day you can claim, I have seen its beginning, the middle and the end, I have seen indiscriminately in and out boundaries dissolve, I can see the gross to the subtlety, I can see into the out, far and near. So that is how you will understand whether you are a male or female, whether you are expected it or not. This is the only way it is happening. You have no controlling power, but if you are ready to take each and every opportunity mindfully, these are the 11 dimensions or 11 facets. So nowadays, quantum physicists, they are also talking about 11 dimensions in the physical world. So some people try to find the parallelism between the science and this kind of thing. I don't know hardly any parallelism, but the single aspect of in-breath and out-breath, you can go in detail in 11 dimensions. When you're observing it, you can't theoretically completely eliminate this air element. You may see heat element also. In-breath is cool and out-breath is warmer. And sometimes you may feel the in-breath and out-breath is as if the watery flows, sometimes air flows, sometimes as dust. The many facets can happen. So, even though you start with the air element, whenever you give the equally suspended attention, choiceless awareness, you see not only the sounds, the pain and sound, thoughts are coming distracting, even the other elements like earth element, water element and the heat element also going to interplay with the air element. So you must have the broadness of your mind, so you can see when and where the breath becomes subtle, breath become tamed, breath become under your control. Within this pool, all the four elements are manifesting by its own way. In order to observe it, you must be so you have to have equanimity to observe the whole drama of this materiality. So when you come up to that, if you are lucky enough, if you come up to that level, you develop certain amount of mastery, you develop certain amount of understanding about this materiality. Ultimately, you will see it's just energies, specifically in between the in-breath and out-breath, and the out-breath and in-breath. The shifting from in-breath to out-breath to in-breath, there's a kind of a transition period. And our mind, rational mind, hardly entertain this middle. It's always shifting there, it is always jumping over there. But when the both in-breath and out-breath become subtler, you are invariably forced to see it. But the problem is, are we ready? Are we prepared to see this changing and shifting of the energy patterns? Ultimately, what your complaint would be, you will say, I can't see any sign of in-breath and out-breath. I can't see any signal, any contact with the in-breath and out-breath, but you will make sure I am mindful. My concentration is intact and I am not away from the breath. So this is the one point one can verify whether there is any other essence or any creator God or creature God, creature soul controlling this energy. If you can go up to that level, you will understand they are working in energy principle rather than the pleasure principle. And whether you are a male or female, whether you are ordained or non-ordained, this experience is humankind, it is universal. When you go up to that level, you would say, this principle, this energy wave principle is not belongs to you. Even your birth, this would have been the same. Even if you are presently experience it, this principle is the same. Even if you die off, this principle is the same. Its nature is ever-changing flux. So whenever this in-breath and out-breath, heat, cold, stiffness, tension, movement, kind of a individual characteristic dissolve into this flux, this is the most challenging part. This is the most camouflaging part in one's meditation. So during that time, the interviews and discussions are very important. Otherwise, you are bound to take one or the other side. It is part and parcel of this intelligent design. This is what the creator God. Or you would say it is completely natural selection, no will, no volition. That kind of extremes can happen, but Buddha He says, don't rush to decision. So one Westerner put it in this way, you must have evenly suspended attention and suspended decision. You must not rush into that. Let the mind to be with the situation as long as possible in order to get the most natural and direct and simple notion rather than your idealistic ideas or your deductive thinking, rational thinking, rationalization. So therefore, my teacher in Burma, Pandita Sayadaw, he says, at that moment, your scholastic understanding, your theory knowledge, whether it is supportive or not, whether it is constructive or destructive, is an open issue. He says not necessarily always it is destructive if you know how to use the theory knowledge and harmonize it with the practical one. So the best answer, the most safe method is to go into this situation as often as possible. Keep the mind completely open to observe it as if someone else experience. So therefore, in each and every successful sitting, daily you may confirm, you may reconfirm the path from gross to the subtlety. Even though it is explained in this systematic linear method, in a retreat like that, second day, third day, fourth day, like, if you are more familiarized, right from the beginning, some yogis are reporting the subtle breath. They don't go through this gross to the subtlety. They start to feel the subtle breath. And if you do not know how to handle it, you may consider it is something wrong. Therefore, you may tend to make forced breathing in order to make it clear in breath and out breath. That is not the idea of these talks and the teaching of the Buddha. He says, in a standard way, we explain it from the gross to the subtlety, but when you are in a retreat, if your mind is very calm and quiet, you must start with subtle, and if it is the case, you can experiment, you can make use the situation in the conducive way. You must pay the attention only to the end of the out-breath. You must go to get the touch of the out-breath and take into the last drop as much as possible, and then you can see as a kind of a transition happens, where no signs, no reference points, but still you can maintain the mindfulness. And when that can happen, when that can be maintained for 2-3 breaths, you will see the mind is going to very deep layers, and where it is not take any refuge of any object. Not the in-breath, not the out-breath, but mind can maintain the balance without much of a object. Just like a push bike, if you can ride it without handling the handle, you can balance it by the body balance, and the bicycle will run. At the beginning, of course, you are handling with both the hands, but slowly you get by handle it by single hand, ultimately you can give up. Likewise, there's a very subtle balance, very subtle harmony, and at that moment you can understand this experience. The experience where you have the sign has completely almost ceases to exist, but still the mindfulness is there, but still the certain amount of concentration is there, and mind is not agitated, mind has no lack of faith, not entertaining doubts, and if you keep it like that, you can understand it is a kind of seeing through the matter, going through the matter, and you are observing the unseen facets. And when everything is harmonized, it is mind and the matter is almost appear like one unit, one unification. And if you are to be there, for example, 30 minutes, 40 minutes and 50 minutes or longer period, you will doubt whether you are dreaming or not. whether it's a concept or reality. The things happen, boil down into the middle situation. You can't imagine whether it's an imagination or concept, or whether it's a realistic experience. So much so, we have been away from our home. Whenever come back home, we feel strange. So daily you have to let the mind to familiarize. This is your home. Come back home, familiarize it. Then only you are qualified. You become master. You become familiarized with both the facets of the matter. The manifested gross form as well as non-manifested, very subtle form. When that happens, you will see when the mind is go deep and deep into this breath as the primary object, during this trip, during this penetration, the other parts of your body is going to respond in a such a way, there are some kind of unintentional and non-volitional activities are going on in the all over the body. Sometimes shaking, sometimes wavering, sometimes heat waves, sometimes cool waves, sometimes heat bubbles. Everything happens, but still, as much as possible, you keep the attention with the breath. But you can see the other parts of the body also going to show there are a lot of other activities. It is not in your agenda. Who is doing it? Whose agenda of it? And there you see, they are not always pleasant. They are not always what is your desire. So therefore, as much as you restrain the willful action, as far as you restrain your volitional action, as far as you restrain your fabrication, you can go to a deep layer and then you can feel it's a huge amount of activities which is not controllable, not under your control. You have no executive powers. You are not the householder. They are not happening according to your will, according to your wish. There is no agenda. And that part, that particular part, definitely more parallel, more close to the Buddha's nature, Buddha's statement. There is no soul. There is no controlling power. There is no governing power. But you have the observer's capacity. But that observer's capacity, the observation, must not be limited to one or two occasions. You have to let it happen again and again, whereby your volitional, your willful actions, everything stops. But you are exposed to this kind of ocean of activities, and there you can see the Buddha is challenging. He says, Rupam bhikkhave atta abhavissa. If there is a kind of a controlling governing power, how can this matter lead into infliction, lead into undesirable things? Because it is leading to the undesirable thing, it is because there is no control power. There is no soul. There is no governing power. So, as far as you are restraining your motivational, willful action, then only you will expose to the other sphere of the mind. Sometimes maybe this is what the Western people are called this as the subconscious. Or when you are penetrating the tip of the iceberg, you are going to the iceberg, and that is only 1/10 is coming out as the tip. But using that tip, if you go down there, huge iceberg is there, and you have never recognized this as your soul, this is me, this is mine, and this is soul, but this is what they give the word push, so that tip is always above the water level. The tip is the one you recognize as me, mine, and my soul. But through that only you have to go penetrate into the iceberg, and when you go to the iceberg, you find it is common to ice, common to the natural, the normal nature or natural thing, and things are happening not according to your agenda, not according to your will, not according to your wish, and this is humiliating. This is humiliating. This is unsatisfactory. This is not what you wish. So that is why the great discovery or this understanding of the Buddha, he found it is dumb-bound, because no one is happy to accept this bitter truth, the humiliating truth. Even though you claim, I can do it, I am doing it, this is me and this is not me, and kind of thing. If you really see all the facets of the matter, you are bound to go into the flux of concepts and reality. When you go there, you understand it is a universal law, and it is not giving any chance you to take the upper hand, you to take the mean advantage of it, because it is happening in the universal law. So you must have the real bold or heroic kind of approach to understand it, to face it. And definitely at the first, second, third events, you will really refuse, thinking you are going to uncontrollable situation is beyond control. I would say emphatically, if you are imbalanced in the mentality, definitely this is a troublesome situation. Definitely this is a troublesome situation. And if you are not thorough in your morality, this is definitely troublesome situation. So daily when you are going there, you have to make the mind and the body in the normal health, keep the precepts and keep the morality in as much as possible harmonized way, then only you can go forward and understand the whole iceberg. When you go there, you find the tip you can feel, you can manipulate, you can claim I am a male, I am a female, I am successful, I am not successful, I am white, I am black, and all the kind of. But when you go down there, there is no such recognizable features, basically no controlling power, no governing power, and to accept it, you must have a very sound, very open-minded mindset to go there. So when I specifically going to give sermons and meet meditators, from my understanding, many people have gone to that place, but no one is ready to accept it, because they consider it as a failure. It has a lack of mindfulness, or they consider it as a lack of concentration, or they think it's something wrong, something mistaken, because they expect something pleasurable, something gainful, something ego, good enough for ego trip, something good enough for conceit, something good enough to grasp. But when the matter reduces to such a subtlety, there is nothing to grasp. There is no graspable thing. And nothing to conceit, no comparable. No in and out, no good and the bad. And you have no self-centered. It is just spread everywhere. So if you are going with non-self characteristic, if you are going to accept and ready to be not conceited and to not to have possessions, that will be a blissful situation. This will be a real relaxation. It is a real solitude. But if you have any kind of a desire or any conceit or egoistic kind of idea, this is naturally appear like outcasted, lost and fearful sometimes, or boring, monotonous or sleepy. But the good part of it is never happening all of a sudden. It is gradually going forward and coming backward, going forward and coming backward. And 1001 time when you do it, you have enough time to harden yourself or train yourself and season yourself. So therefore, overnight, very difficult. By a single talk, very difficult. You have to repetitively, you have to do it. That is bhavana, the term called, translated as mind culture, indicates it is not a single stroke. Again and again you have to do it. But while doing, Rupam Bhikkhave Anatta, the statement of the Buddha, for bhikkhus the form is non-self, must be accepted fact. Otherwise, all the experience you are going to experience under your very nose, you will challenge. You will entertain doubts. You will lose your faith because throughout the samsara or throughout this life, the gratification, the desire was the driving force, the motivation. But when you go up to this level, your motivational power is becoming weaker and weaker, and therefore your theoretical understanding or your mindset is playing a very big role. So that is why one has to have a certain amount of theory understanding, the book knowledge, but that must not be again leading to the conceit. It must not lead to ego trips. It must not lead to possess this knowledge as such. But you must use it in a pragmatic way, together with meditation, together with application with morality, concentration and the wisdom. Then only one day you will see the parallelism, see the progress. So if otherwise, if you are going to say at the beginning, no, there is no self in the matter, it is just the nature, you will never accept the moral responsibilities. And you will just go for the pleasure principle without any consideration about the other psychologies and your future. And therefore, whenever you become materialistic kind of view, you are at the danger of lack of moral responsibilities. And therefore, that is what happened in the West. People are materialistically, scientifically very advanced. They have the modern technology and the infrastructural facilities and kind of thing. But you can see the erosion in the moral shame and the moral fear. Ultimately, very difficult to discriminate the animals and be human beings. But in the Eastern countries, the people are so much of religious, and they think everything is governed and controlled by the omnipotent, omnipresent God, and God is the Paramatta, that universal God, and I have my own share, the Jivata, that self created, which is suitable for the creature, and therefore they are in such a fanatic situation, they will never challenge with experimental knowledge. So the way the Buddha presented was not denying either, but going through the meditation. If you are in a single sitting, if you are successful, within a single sitting you can see how much the matter, the form, the breath is evolving. How much it is going through the metamorphosis, how much it is going through this flux, the changing nature. More and more you go, more and more the matter go through this evolution, your mind, your meditative mind, the meditation and the insight knowledges also going through the parallelly, and then only one day, due to this familiarization, you will understand this kind of experimenting we will never do in our day-to-day activities, because we don't have enough time. We are always behind the pleasure principle, so one has to take completely different time and take precepts and change your mindset and experimenting. But the thing is, those who are all experimenting never cut through this kind of successful sittings. So therefore, if someone is to observe it, he or she has to consider it's a very rare coincidence. Best thing is you to facilitate this again and again, and let the mind to understand by itself, not by driving, not by conditioning, not by premeditated ideas, but to give enough practical events, experience, and generally mind will assimilate what's the natural thing, what is straightforward thing. So therefore, even though we are talking in common talks, even though we are in common discussion as groups. This trip is happening in only in one dimension, here, now, I am. Whenever these three qualifications are disturbed, you are distracted. So, theory we can understand as a group, discussions we can do it, but whenever you are to restrain yourself, it is happening here, now I am. So therefore, whether it is applicable for each and every member of the society, each and every member of the family, each and every citizen of the country, it's a real question. Impossible. The only thing is, after giving this theoretical knowledge and discussions and the meditative object, it is happening in the individual basis. So therefore, many complain, many look down, telling that whole practice is very selfish. You are going away from the society, you are going away from your family members, so therefore it is kind of escapism, it is kind of very selfish. But unless otherwise you understand the real nature of at least the matter, you have to understand how much fanatic you are chasing behind this pleasure. At the cost of others, the free thinking. And therefore, only once you understood, you will be really concerned about moral responsibilities and moral fear and the moral shame, and then only you can have a feeling about other psychology. So therefore, though some are going to complain, telling that that you are very selfish, it never stops at that level. Whenever you are understanding the real nature of at least the matter, your sensitivity to the moral responsibilities definitely increasing, definitely it is sharpening, definitely it is become very, very efficient. So therefore, at a time, of course you may come here and spend 7 days or 15 days or kind of thing, but definitely it is not escapism. When you go deep, your feeling to the other beings and the other psychologies understood, because this matter is common for everyone. Once you understood your own thing, it is easily applicable to the other people, other places, and it has its universality. So before you come to the universality, you understand only the natural, individual characteristic. Natural characteristic, it is less than 50% of the total picture. The moment you go to the common characteristic, the universal characteristic, your understanding is to understand the normal human mind, not only your personal mind. So therefore, don't entertain that kind of a narrow kind of criticism, and don't challenge them also. Keep on practice. While practicing, definitely you will be broadening your ideas and experimenting, and ultimately, if the Buddha's teaching is applicable and it is true, you also one day second the same suggestion that the Buddha has been presented. For that only we are also repeating and delivering the sermons and discussing. And I hope this kind of information, book knowledge, will help promote your day-to-day practice, and you will be encouraged to go deep into the layers of mindfulness, and gradually you yourself will understand what does it mean by the Buddha. And with that remark, I would like to stop today's talk. Thank you very much for listening.